it's not just one thing that's causing an increase in creative seller financing. I think homeowners that want full price, not trying to get that cash offer, they know what their houses are worth. They're trying to get that max offer. Some of them are willing to wait. Internet teaching people these new strategies. That way they go from just that one trick pony to becoming a real estate professional, just like your team. When you said that your team are 50-50, realtors and investors, I'm sitting over here thinking that's what the future is going to be. And I don't think there's going to be realtors and investors anymore in the future. I believe we're going to see a real estate professional.
In this episode, I talk with Burton Alicando, who is the lead product specialist at PropStream. We take a deep dive into lead generation. We talk about how to generate leads, how to market for leads, how to cross-segment data sets and lists to drill down and find more qualified leads, how to use creative marketing strategies and sales strategies to convert more of those leads into actual deals, and so much more. So if you're looking for leads and how to convert more, you're going to love this episode. I hope you enjoy. Now onto the show. How you doing, Burton?
I'm doing very well. How about you, Chris?
Doing great, doing great. It's good seeing you. The last time I saw you, it was a pleasant surprise. We had talked on Zoom, and I think maybe phone calls on several occasions, and then bumped into each other in Las Vegas, of all places, at EXPCon.
That was a surprise. Yeah, first time get to meet you in person, and you're as cool on Zoom as you are in person. I mean, let's face that. But yeah, it was an honor to finally meet you in person. So, brother Chris, thank you so much for coming up to us when we were at the EXPCon and just finally connecting the dots.
Yeah, and we may touch on that too, because it was a bit of a surprise, and PropStream is pretty well known in the real estate investing space. But EXPCon is it's a retail brokerage. EXP Realty. It's a retail brokerage. That's their annual event that they do in October. It's huge. It's amazing. Like, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah,
But
I think huge is not even the best definition for it, because that thing was like jam packed.
yeah,
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 every EXP agent was there that I know. So holy smokes there.
yeah. So apparently, uh, agents are getting value out of PropStream as well, and you're emerging into that. But I've been saying that for years. Like, investors who are not licensed need to find ways to partner with agents, but it just makes more sense if the investor themselves or someone who's core on the team is licensed too. So maybe we'll touch on that here in a minute. But the big elephant in the room, we were talking offline about this, is leads. Like, right now we are at a historical low on sales volume. Number of transactions that are being done, whether that's off market or on market, all market is down. And it's not that we're in a 2008 scenario where prices are collapsing and everyone's panicking. It's just everyone's just kind of holding still. No one's really doing anything unless they have to. And that's impacting real estate agents. It's impacting investors. It's impacting wholesalers, long investors, short-term rentals, and basically anyone in the real estate market. So
Yeah.
leads is the big thing. How can you get leads? And I've been also telling people for years, like, you got to get creative. Like, if you rely on one single lead source, eventually it will not work as well as it did before. It may not go away. Could. But at some point, it's probably not going to work as well as it did before. And if you haven't built up multiple lead channels, then you're vulnerable. So today, how are you seeing investors? How are you seeing them find deals in this market?
That's a really great question. Well, obviously, we specialize in providing property records both on and off market. I will be honest, most of our users are always looking for the off market properties in PropStream. But there are technically two ways to identify these motivated sellers. The first way I call the traditional search, which is what you're probably doing already. You're searching your markets that you invest in, and you select a list that's provided by a software company. For us, we have 19 categories that you can choose from, like a tired landlord, a deceased owner, pre-foreclosure maybe. So this is the traditional search. And the reason I call it that is it mimics what an agent and investor were doing before technology. They would go to the county and physically grab a list, take it back to their office, and then work off that list. So you can do the same thing in PropStream. I can search Miami right now, click on the tax liens, make sure it has equity, make sure it's off market, maybe owned by an individual that lives out of state, and then I can market to that list. So it mimics what you were doing in the past, just much faster. But what separates us from the past or what you were doing back then is we don't provide data. I have to remind people that we're not a list provider, we're a data provider. And although we have 19 categories that you can choose from, we also have over 120 filters that you can apply when you're doing a search. And so over the last few years, it dawned upon me that there's really a new way to search for motivated sellers, and I call it building situations. You see, not everybody that wants to sell is going to be on a list. There are thousands, if not millions of homeowners right now that want to sell, but they're not on any of these lists that you're familiar with. For example, have you considered that homeowner who's been sharing a house for 10 years with one bathroom? That's a reason to want to sell. Why? Because their kids are growing up, right? They're going to probably need that second bathroom. Who wants a teenager hogging up a bathroom for a whole hour, right? So it's things like this that I'm starting to see agents and investors start understanding that, hey, you know what? No one just wakes up overnight and they're in pre foreclosure. Something happens first. Like, for example, interest rates are climbing. So you can go in PropStream right now, and instead of trying to look for a pre foreclosure, you can look for adjustable rate mortgages. Now, why is that? Well, because of rising interest rates, these are the homes that potentially going to have new mortgage payments.
Yep.
And you're either going to pay for it, or you're going to need to sell, or risk losing your property due to a default. And so this is at least something that I've caught on to where if you're not understanding how to create scenarios or situations and you're just fixated on just, always going after a list, I kid you not, you have competition that's way ahead of you. And so
Yeah,
I
it really comes
like
down
to remind that.
to you know the end result you want. You're looking for an asset, and you're looking for an asset that's off market, which typically means there's unique situations that are going to that's going to put them in a position to where they might want to sell it at a discount. That doesn't always mean financial. It just means unique situations.
Absolutely.
And it's that story that gets them to the unique situation changes. The story is different for a lot of those folks now than it was in 2010. Like right. 2010, most of it was financial, like or financial, either personally or financial. The home itself was underwater. Now the equity situation on all these homes is pretty good, and the job market is pretty strong. So it's not financial for most people, and even out of the 200 homes that we flipped, most of the deals that we bought during that time weren't financially motivated. I mean, the money's always important, but yeah. Most of them weren't in dire financial distress. There were other motivating factors. So building that story on how did they get here, and you just built that story with an arm. Yeah. Like you can be in a pre-foreclosure situation. How'd you get there? Well, you had to miss some payments. There's delinquency. Now it's a little bit challenging to get that information, but what are some likelihood? What are some ways that people would be delinquent, or what are some warning signs that would make them delinquent? Could be past due taxes.
Yes.
Could be areas where home insurance doubled over the last year. Could be an arm.
Absolutely. You nailed it right on the head. It's almost like taking what you're already going after and kind of reverse engineering, the process of how they got there, like you said. No one, again, just wakes up and they're in bankruptcy. No one just wakes up and, they miss 6 payments. Things happen to get you there. Like another great example is, with inflation, that means material cost is increasing. What does that mean to a homeowner that wants to remodel, right? What they were paying for 5 years ago is not the same price to remodel today. It might now be double the cost to get that roof on top of that new roof on. So just understanding that situations happen that aren't always going to be documented on a list is very important. So keep your phone with you. When you hear interest rates are climbing, again, you should definitely be looking for those adjustable rate mortgages. If you hear, hey, lumber has skyrocketed, you should be finding properties that were built 50 years ago and reaching out to these homeowners and asking them, are you going to remodel that dilapidated property, or do you want to perhaps list and go for something more modern? It's understanding that you're dealing with people, not a list. And once you understand that, I think you'll start realizing maybe you'll go into that Neo mode where PropStream now looks a lot different. It's not just 19 lists to choose from. It's I can create anything I want to in this platform.
Yeah, and reading beyond headlines of news articles, so that you're not necessarily reacting to the headlines or whatever's going on in the news, but really going in with an open mind on what does this mean? What does this mean in this macro or micro sense, but also what does it mean in the macro sense, and how does that apply to my business? But more importantly, how does it apply to my target audience? Which, if you're a real estate investor, at least in single family, how we're describing it here, it means homeowners. How does this apply to homeowners? Now, there very well could become a case where FHA comes out with a 40-year mortgage. Now, how does that apply? And that's exactly what I think. How does this affect the market? What does that? I mean, to me, just hypothetically speaking, or not hypothetically speaking, but the first thing that pops out of my head is now homes become more affordable, even with 7% interest rates. I mean, we're at a 20-year high now with mortgage rates. Homes just became a lot more affordable. So what could that do? Might take up transactions, might start another, resurge price growth. It may have an impact on rentals because people have been held up in rentals and maybe they can now go buy. I don't know. I mean, it can be a lot of things, but things like, that's what you got to think about when you're reading these articles and how dissecting how it applies to your business.
Yep. You nailed it right in the head. As they say, cause and effect. And so there's always something that will happen. And so keep your eye on any news in the housing market or financially, because that's going to ripple into the housing industry.
Yeah. And then I'm going to stand on the soapbox here real quick. Also, being consciously aware of not putting your predetermined thoughts and opinions into a data set. So I talk with folks that are absolutely sure a cliff is just right around the corner, like a financial cliff, real estate market cliff is right around the corner.
Yep.
But when challenged, because could that happen? Yeah, 100%.
Sure.
But when challenged, the data set is very vague, but also very wrapped up into opinions on political policy regarding taxes and monetary policy and leadership in Washington and helicopter money, all of which do have effects on the economy, but doesn't necessarily mean, that opinion is going to be true. So it's just being aware. And then also you taking Ray Dalio's approach. When you have an opinion, you feel like you have the data, thinking, how can I be wrong about this? Like, challenge yourself. Like, this is what I know, this is what I believe, but what are ways that I could actually be wrong? And then just really red teaming it. I love that. If you haven't read Ray Dalio's book, Principles, highly recommend it. It's I found it a bit dry, but I mean, he's the world's most successful hedge fund manager for a reason. Might be worth listening to. Lead types. So you kind of illustrated list stacking, where you're basically taking a data set and then you're layering another data set, which you mentioned, you have like 19 different data sets that you could start stacking. And every time you do that, you're going to narrow down a list. Sorry, I've had this cough for like 3 weeks and it comes on and on. Hopefully it doesn't bother us in this podcast. Is there any particular type of leads? And I know you mentioned ARMs, but from a macro standpoint, are there any types of leads you're seeing investors having more success with right now?
Right now, I am seeing a lot of tired landlords as one of the hottest searches right now, looking for tired landlords that are out of state. Obviously, like you said, there's a hardship in just owning property locally. The further you are away from that property, you're unloading responsibilities to property management. You're having to rely on contractors out of state, and just being working on a fix and flip in state. Some people have challenges with contractors there, so now you're dealing with a contractor out of state. So what I've seen is people just looking for tired landlords, but just some additional filters on top of that, looking for tired landlords that are currently vacant right now with an open mortgage. Why? Because, hey, if no one's there, you're not cash flowing anymore. You're now losing money as you're trying to fill in that vacancy. So one of the hottest add-ons to a tired landlord is making sure it's vacant, also has a mortgage. Another tired landlord filter I'm seeing is tired landlords with multiple properties. We do have a numbers of property owned filter in our ownership info section. So we can look for a tired landlord that's, for example, out of state and has 5 or more properties. So that property is probably the property that they least want, because it's the furthest away from their portfolio. So they might be more willing to let that one go. But tired landlords has become one of the hottest searches in the last few months, based on the data that I'm seeing.
That's so interesting you say that, because out of the 200 deals that we bought, tired landlords was always our best lead source. Always. Because typically, at least in my experience, the tired landlord was a reluctant landlord, meaning they either couldn't sell their house or it just wasn't the right market to sell it. So they moved and then just rented it. And then they don't run it like a business. They just let it rent. Tenants trash it out. And at some point, it just becomes such a massive headache, or they can't lease it because they need so much remodeling and they don't have the money. The other scenario is inherited. You inherit a rental, or you inherit a house that's vacant. You try renting it out and it doesn't work out. So I love that. And this with my my EXP team, every week we have coaching calls, and most of them are investors. They're all licensed agents. Most are investors. Some of them are kind of 50-50. They do a lot of investments. They also do a lot of working with clients who are investors and also retail. And they were talking about, because this particular person was calling FSBOs. So calling FSBOs for listing leads, and he was having some success. He even got some wholesale deals out of it. But he brought up he just started calling for rent by owner. Calling for rent by owner, prospecting them for potential sales later on. Not to sell right now, but just building that relationship for when they might want to sell, which maybe now, could be a year from now, could be a few months from now. So I thought that was
that's genius. I like how he's
planting because it's vacant
now. Yeah, exactly. He's planting the seed now, kind of saying, hey, everything is good right now. The grass is green on your side, but and people forget, a landlord has to go through a lot. They have to go through, drafting leases, right? They might be doing 1-year leases, so they have to go through tenants. The property could be destroyed while you have a tenant, right? So now you got to invest money to get that property back to current condition. And so again, people think it's all fine to own a property because it might be cash flowing, but there's a lot of responsibility in being a landlord. And I think people forget about that. And so to me, I think that's why tired landlords, in our system, it's 15 years, that's non-owner occupied, has become the hottest list. It's because you're dealing with people that have had to go through 15 years of tenants, 15 years of remodeling the property when it was initially remodeled from the get-go, right? So I believe that's one of many reasons why the tired landlord list has become very popular in the last few months.
Yeah, and the approach really matters too. So if you're going after someone who's a pre-foreclosure and you actually get in contact with them, obviously this is a very short timeline. They got to make a decision, and if you're actually engaging with them, then emotionally they're probably pretty close to either making the decision if you can really help them out. For rent by owner, for sale by owner, an actual landlord or whatever may not be as close to that. It could be, you never know. So, but if you go in, at least this was my experience. This is definitely what I coach, and what this particular investor agent that the approach he's used, it's been very, very successful, is not approaching with any sales hat on at all, 100%
Mm.
relationship building. How can I help you? Hey, this is who I am. Notice you got this house. Been working with some folks in the area. How can I help you? Need some comps? Would you like to know, what your home's worth? You want to know what some other home, like it, if you ever were to get it sold, would you like to know what some of the other properties around you, some of the upgrades that they did to get the most value? What some of the buyers in this particular neighborhood, what they really have been looking for? What are some things they actually don't like? Like this neighborhood, they hate pools. You don't have a pool, so that's good, because people just don't like pools and things like that. And he's been able to get, because that data is fairly easy to get, um, and they're getting pounded with every realtor in the world trying to help them out. But he's able to get through the noise because he doesn't have a sales hat on. He has a, I'm just a local pro trying to help you out, or I'm just a local pro trying to see how I can help you out.
I love that. Going in as a problem solver, not as a salesman. And that's the key right
You're
there.
filling that pipeline. You're just filling that pipeline. And if you do that for long enough, 6 months, 12 months, 2, 3 years, 5 years, guarantee if anyone did that 5 years, especially if they're a real estate agent too, because they have the ability to take both sides. They can be the investor, they can also be the agent and help them out. Of course, there's proper disclosures you have to do, but do that for 5 years. Like you very likely after that amount of effort, like diligent effort for that long, you probably won't have to market much at all anymore. Because at that point, the leads are, from the agent side, the leads and referrals will be pretty overwhelming and consistent to where, and then hopefully you're doing proper branding to where you've made a name for yourself. You'll just, leads will come to you.
Snowball effect, right? It just starts getting bigger and bigger. And before you know it, all your hard work turns into avalanche and you're just taking up the whole market. So that's pretty awesome. I love that he takes that approach. Very effective, and personally, I'm a consumer myself. I can smell the salesman, and that immediately is a turnoff for me. I like the people that approach as friends, and I love that your staff is doing that, Chris. That's really, really impressive.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, when it's the same script.
Yeah.
When it's the same script, it's just like, oh God. I mean, I'm a sales guy. Sometimes I humor them, but I'm just like, man, it's painful. What are your thoughts on creative financing strategies, and are you seeing any changes and maybe an uptick or maybe a decline in those kind of strategies to make deals work in this market?
No, I'm actually seeing more creative seller financing. I don't know if it's because it's the era of creative seller financing or because the information is more readily available now than it ever was before. You know what I mean? If you go back into the 90s, people didn't know about lease options as much as or sub twos or any of that stuff, wholesaling, novations, like all these strategies were around for a long time, but it's kind of hidden behind a vault of some sort, or you had to be part of an echelon of fancy investors to understand these strategies, or maybe go to a very fancy seminar that costs quite a bit to understand that stuff. So either it's because of you know the possibility of low equity right around the corner, the possibility of homeowners not wanting to let go of their property right now and they want a higher price than a 70% to the dollar offer. Maybe all these factors, but I like to believe it's not just one thing that's causing an increase in creative seller financing. I think it's homeowners that want full price, not trying to get that cash offer. They know what their houses are worth, and so they're trying to get that max offer. Some of them are willing to wait, to get that amount. Again, it could be the social media, could be internet teaching people these new strategies. That way, they go from just that one trick pony to becoming a real estate professional, just like your team. I mean, when you said that your team are 50-50, realtors and investors, I'm sitting over here thinking that's what the future is going to be. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be realtors and investors anymore in the future. I believe we're going to see a real estate professional, someone who actually can solve all the problems, whether, hey, we can list your house, or hey, maybe, due to the limited time that we have, maybe a cash offer is the best bet right now. Or, what, since you want top dollar, but we can't get it right now, maybe some creative strategy to get you what you want over a period of time might be the best. And so to me, that's what I'm seeing. I think it's just many things coming together, kind of like a perfect storm. But yes, creative seller financing is increasing. Some markets are more acceptant to it, and some markets still kind of voodoo or taboo, essentially. Like you want to tread lightly or just make sure you're speaking to attorneys, make sure you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's properly when you're approaching these types of uh, a little bit more challenging of a strategy.
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely there's both federal and state laws. You got to make sure you following like lease options in Texas. Like that's how I got started in real estate. And then Texas changed some laws like very early in my. It was like within a year of me starting to invest. I'd already done a lease
Mhm.
option, and like boom, they didn't outlaw it, but they threw a lot of red tape at it.
Right.
Where it's challenging. To do that properly without exposing yourself to quite a bit of risk. But in other states, it's seemed to be pretty open season. Same thing with owners financing disclosures, making sure you're following all the like Dodd-Frank laws and RESPA, or I don't know if RESPA really applies there, but in any case, yeah, that's where working with the real estate attorney helps. Ultimately, it comes down to like liquidity. When liquidity is readily available or more available, and especially easier to access and cheaper to access, like 3% mortgages, then creative financing becomes less desirable. I mean, why wait 10, 20, 30 years when I can just get it all now?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when credit starts to dry up or becomes harder to get or more affordable, creative financing uh, can be attractive alternative options. And this also, it doesn't necessarily have to mean the actual interest rate. It could also, like you mentioned, markets. Primary markets are going to have more liquidity, like Houston, LA, uh, you know, Miami. They're going to have a lot more capital, banks, lenders willing to loan in those. But you go out to secondary or even tertiary markets where typically it's small banks,
Yeah.
very local community banks, or it's owners financing. Very common in the country. Like if you're
Yep.
buying like rural property, owners financing, or you're getting some type of um very specialized loan product.
Yeah.
But
Very valid point.
these are all can be ways that you can actually make deals work, even paying full retail.
Yeah.
Like, would you pay full retail for a house where you're getting no equity? I mean, for a lot of investors, they're like, no, why would I do that? Well, what what if they gave it to you for a 30-year interest-only mortgage with 36 months of deferred payments?
Mm.
I mean, does that make sense? I don't know. It might depend on what you want to do with it and the rent rates and all this stuff. But just, I mean, thinking about these things, because
Yeah.
there's probably some people like if you bought your house in the last 18 months, depending on your market, you might be underwater. Not everywhere. Like some markets of like Miami,
Yeah.
they're still chugging along.
Very valid point. I mean, we go back to 2021. I mean, every MLS showing had, 15, 13 cars out front. Most properties that were listed were being bought 5 to 15% over asking price.
Yeah.
Now we're in a market where potentially values are starting to kind of correct, maybe in some markets go down. What we are seeing, our days on market are increasing. So that's probably what's keeping the price where it's at. But something's going to budge. Either these days on market going to keep climbing, eventually expire, or these prices are going to need to get adjusted to where the demand is going to be. And so that I think is a very, very, very good valid point. Like just the fact that you're mentioning that, I think these are just going to be some things to start considering
Yeah,
and in your arsenal.
if you're in something other than single family, owners financing, creative financing is very common. Self
Yeah.
storage, mobile home parks, small multifamily, it's very common. But just ultimately, don't be afraid to ask, because this is the market to where getting in may seem hard, but it's actually easier because there's a lot of more institutional or bigger players, or folks that have been in the game for a while, where things aren't working the way that it used to for them, and it's a little harder for you to adjust a big ship.
Yeah,
But a smaller
absolutely.
player can come in, and if they can learn these creative strategies, they can get in and and get some deals done when there's less competition.
Yeah. Actually, here's a great example. I'll keep the name secret, but in 2021, again, when everyone was paying a little over asking pricing, a really good friend of mine, an investor, was looking for military homes, military personnel areas. And the reason for that is, a lot of these guys travel from state to state because of training or, where they're being relocated to. And so what he discovered is that most of them, needed the house right away. And so they were willing to pay that 5 to 15% over asking price. Well, a few years have gone out. Now they're being relocated or they're being deployed somewhere and they need to sell. But to your point, Chris, the equity is not there because of the fact that they paid over asking price,
Yeah,
right? And so we're starting to see a lot of people do creative stuff with the military folks
yeah,
because again, they're not trying to break even, right? While they're out and about, they rely on professionals like you guys to fill in that void,
yeah.
right? Make sure
And
that property has that tenant cash flowing, and then
yeah,
over a period of a year or two, when the equity is now there, you're able to list that property on their behalf,
yeah.
and you made this
And
person who's sacrificing a profit,
yeah.
So
And it's my understanding that VA loans are assumable.
absolutely. So, and
So
that
how would you
that
like
is
to
one of the
assume a
filters you
30%
can use in
mortgage?
PropStream. So if you guys want to search for VA loans, we got you covered.
Yeah. There's really a massive opportunity right now with the government created this window of basically 2 years or 18 months. But if you want to go back and even up to 4% interest rates the last 3 or 4 years. So you've got between 3 and 4, or 3 and 4.5% interest rates. That debt is gold. Because if you can control that debt, and by control it, I mean whether you're doing some type of creative lease option or owner's finance, subject to being the big one,
Yeah.
a loan assumption, that gives you a ton of value because you can do things with that property that you just cannot do with a 7% mortgage unless you want to put a 50% down payment. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, you nailed it on the head. And those are some filters of ours. You can search by interest rate, you can search by the loan type. Chris gave you guys some really good hints. You did catch on to that. But yeah, I mean, identifying those owners with low interest rates with assumable loans, control that, and cash is going to flow in everybody's pocket at the end of the day. The owner's going to cash flow. You're going to be able to make your profit, and you're going to make someone happy because they're going to be able to afford a property that they may not have afford traditionally with a bank. So it all, to me, it's a win-win-win situation at the end of the day.
100%. Okay. So, real estate agents, you know,
Yeah.
and you mentioned before that there's this blend. It used to be investors over here, agents over here. Investors don't like agents because they're outdated, obsolete, and they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Agents don't like investors because they're cheap, they're scum, they're trying to rob people of their homes.
Yeah. I've heard it
Um,
all.
but and then I mean, obviously there can be truth to both sides. On the very very small ends, I mean, there's always
Are there bad
fringes out
apples?
there.
Absolutely. But the
Yeah,
bad apples do not paint the brush for everybody. I agree with that.
100%. But now there's a lot of blending, and I got my license.
Mhm.
I asked I asked a guy who he's done thousands of deals. He owns a hard money company who's done thousands of more deals. Loaning other people money on deals, and I asked him, "Hey, should I get my license?" And basically, he summed it up with, "If you want to be a professional in this business, you need to get licensed. It can only help you. Like you can't break the law with or without a license. Like you can't defraud someone. Really, the only thing a license really compels you to do is you get a couple extra disclosures, but all that can be done and stacked in your favor because now you're like, hey, I'm not someone who just took a weekend boot camp trying to type a property and steal your equity. Actually, I have a license by the state. I've gone through a background check. And I actually have a higher standard of ethics I have to uphold, and
Hmm.
I'm using the state contracts. You might have seen these when you bought the house. Bah, 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 bah. So I lay out all these landmines. uh, for my competition to step on if they were to shop it. But in any case, we're seeing a lot of blending now,
Yeah.
where it's both. And I just call it the real estate professional. It's not the agent, it's not the investor. I also call it an investor agent. But if you're an agent and that's all you know, then all you know is listing a home.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are people who do not want their home listed, but they do want it sold. Sometimes they want it sold fast. Sometimes they may not care, but they do want it sold. The surge of open door, offer pad, the Zillow offers, regardless of how you feel about them and whether or not those business models survive. Well, actually, the business model survives. Whether those businesses survive, I don't know. But the demand they've been able to soak up, the market share, is proof that agents are not providing that value to the marketplace. I've had people that I personally know, someone who was actually running for elected office that had a rental property in a new home that wanted me to buy his house. And I told him up front, like, because I went to church with a guy, he's running for elected office, he was running for constable. So I'm like, let me list it. Like, I can get you more money. I can show him, hey, look, I think it's worth this. You're cash flowing. Like, we'll just let the lease expire, do this, da, da, da. He's like, no, I don't want to deal with it. Don't want to deal with it. You buy it. Bought it. I made a lot of money off that house. Just did not want to list it. But so agents that know how to handle that situation are better able to serve their clients. Same with investors. And not every house wants to sell off market or at a deep discount or in the creative manner, like subject to and all that. They may not want that, but they do want to sell. And they might even be able to be okay selling at a slight discount that just doesn't work for you. Well, if you could list it, you now expose them to other buyers, some investor buyers that are just willing to pay a lot more than what you are. You can help them. You can only do that if you're both, or if you have the opposite side on your core team.
Absolutely. And people forget, like, you may not like the other side, and the other side may not like you, but that homeowner doesn't care what's going on between you two.
Yeah.
Like, the homeowner doesn't know that agents and investors may not get along like oil and water,
They're
right?
a
All
customer.
that
All they care
homeowner
about
knows
is they've got a problem.
and it needs
Who's
to
gonna
be
solve it?
solved. Yeah, exactly.
My ice ice baby.
And if you're not like thinking like Batman's utility belt, where you practically have everything that you can think of, I don't know what you're doing. You really need to start thinking. I need to build that arsenal of strategy. I can't be just a one trick pony. I need to understand or build my team and bring in people that understand these other strategies to help get our team to that next level. So when a homeowner says, "No, I'm not interested in listing," well, how about this option? Well,
Yeah.
no, not that. How about this option? Right? And I see that. I mean, I'm physically witnessing as I travel, and I teach, and I'm seeing these new students and how people are teaching. They're starting to teach, these professionals how to approach homeowners with multiple strategies. And think about how impressive that is to a homeowner. They're not going to be looking. I believe in the next 5, 10 years, homeowners are going to be looking for real estate professionals, not an agent and not an investor.
Yeah.
And I think homeowners are going to want to see options, not just this is what I think it could list for. This is what your cash offer is. They're going to want to see all their options and then decide on what's best for them.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of the public that thinks realtors are obsolete. They may not like investors, but they also think realtors are obsolete. I mean, Zillow and its surgence has given the average homeowner a lot of power to or access to data that they didn't previously have.
right.
Now, and I know agents don't like Zillow, and let's be clear, Zillow really has no interest in putting realtors' interest at best. They've got their own agenda. It's their business. But at the end of the day, that information is accessible and very easily accessible to the public. But ultimately, at the end of the day, a home buyer, a home seller, they have a problem, and they don't care how they solve that problem to a degree. They just want to make sure it's solved. Some may have greater desires and needs for customer service, some less so. But it is going to it's changing the dynamics on how investors and agents or the investor agent is going to have to run their business, and how they're either going to need to have dynamic teams or just hyper focused on a very unique skill set and strategy that's not easily it's not easy to get into. So if you focus on the broad and easy, then competition's easy to come in. But if you
Definitely.
focus on something that's in high demand, but it's also very difficult to learn that skill set or get into that, then that's a moat. That's a moat around your business. It's a hedge and it protects you. And people are going to pick specialize or be broad, but have a dynamic team.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And I really don't know what's going on with this cough. It's actually gotten better. It's kind of went from having I think it's because I'm training for a 100-mile run. And
Oh, that's awesome and interesting. Is it just a run or is it like a triathlon where you're doing
no,
other
it's a
things?
race. David,
Okay.
David Goggins put that in my head, and I'm not a distance runner. It's like that's not me, but I do like ridiculously crazy sounding, challenging things.
Hmm.
So that's ultimately why I did it. But I think like I don't know if there's a combination of just normal allergies plus this heat dome and then extended periods outside sucking in air that is really jacked up my whole sinus issues. So it seems to be going away. But you're sponsoring Real Estate Wealth Con. Really, everything we've talked about here, um, these are all things that the reasons why I started Invested Agents, and that was to educate. Which Invested Agents, it has agent in it. To from just someone who doesn't know, they might think, hey, this is for realtors. But really, everything I talk about is something that anyone can get value out of, whether you're an agent or an investor. Because ultimately, I'm talking about the real estate market and investing, which anyone can do. But I've had a particular interest in agents because most agents say they want to invest, but they never do. Um, and the reasons are lack of education or lack of money. And really, the lack of money is just education. It's still an education problem. So it's like, hey, let's provide the education. And we've done a lot of events, and we got the team that we do stuff with too, but we do a lot of live events and virtual events and whatnot. And brings us to Real Estate WealthCon, which y'all are sponsoring. And y'all sponsored the event we did last year, which was a much smaller version of what this is. And for 3 days, we've got like over 50 speakers that are going to be just dumping a massive amount of value to a whole audience. Like, who knows how many are going to tune in for free,
Mm.
absolutely for free. Like, and I've priced it out. Like, the in-person cost to go to these events are typically 300 on the very cheap end, but usually it's 500. If it's a 3-day event, 500 and up, plus airfare, plus hotel, plus food and any other accommodations, plus time away from home.
Hmm.
So that has its own costs. Of course, in person has its value. You do get to bump shoulders and stuff, but to be able to do this for free, like that's what I want to do. When we did this last year, I wanted to make sure that we did it for free, and we did. And then this one was like, hey, look, I want to 10x it, but still keep it free. And that's what we're doing. We're really happy that y'all are part of this event too, and we're gonna be
We're
talking about these things.
honored that you have accepted us. I mean, it's a two-way street. We see what you're doing and we see how you're teaching the communities out there. Again, to me, you're teaching how to be a real estate professional, and that is a very unique thing. And we're looking forward to the Wealth Fund. We think it's something that everyone should be fixated on. I mean, if you guys aren't taking advantage of this free education that Chris is offering, 50 speakers, guys, you can't even think about how much that would have cost Chris, right? There's a lot on the back end. Chris is bringing all these great speakers to teach you guys how to be that real estate professional we're talking about. So Chris, I mean, our team is really thankful that you've allowed us to sponsor. So we want to thank you as much as you're thanking us.
Yeah, 100%. And I think y'all may even have some surprises for few lucky folks that decide to tune in and join us and participate. So
That we do, but you're only going to find out, guys, if you show up. So if you're wondering what it is, you're not going to figure out in the description, and we're not going to tell you at all in the next few minutes.
and
So
it's free. It's
yeah,
free.
please make sure to show up so you guys can see that amazing reward we'll be giving everybody.
Yeah. It's realestatewealthcon.com, realestatewealthcon.com. Just look at the list of speakers. Like the cool thing for me is like it's a lot of these folks, I could talk to. But it's a good excuse when we host these events to actually work hand in hand with someone, or at least in a small degree with individual speakers, but collectively put on something great. But I mean, you're gonna see some pretty big names. But even the ones that you don't, like, everyone on the stage has a lot of value in their unique in their topic. 100%. You're gonna see some big names like the Tom Wheelwrights, Coach Burt, Brian Burke, Brand Phillips, Trevor Mock, and Gino Barbaro, so many others. Sorry if I left you. I know I left some out, but these are some big names like Tom Wheelwright. Like, come on, Rich Dad Advisory does Robert Kiyosaki's taxes. Like, I was reading that guy 20 years ago, and that to have him on is just incredible. But there's a lot of other folks that you don't know their name, but guarantee you they're phenomenal at what they do, and you will get value if you just sit there and listen, take notes, and connect with them too. Like reach out to these folks.
Absolutely.
All
We're
right.
excited. I'm excited. I can't wait for it. You're ready. I'm like eager. I'm like, let's go already. But no, I
Me
mean,
too.
again,
It's been a lot to put this thing on.
is if you
uh
guys are watching
and
this,
and
you got to be there.
all right, let's close it out with got a few final questions we ask everyone. If you could give advice to your 20-year-old self, what would that be?
Um, oh, that's a really good one. If I could give advice to my 20-year-old self, what would it be? Um, be empathetic. Listen to people. It's not always about you. I was very self ego back then. I was all about me and could care less about others. If I knew that others can elevate you much faster to where you want to be, then that's what I would have done. I would have been more friendlier. I would have been more willing to share my knowledge to others in exchange of, learning from them, and understand that it's going to take more than just yourself to get to where you're at. You know what I mean? So, as they say, it takes a village to raise someone. I believe it also takes a village to get your dreams to come true. And so, if if I could tell my 20-year-old self how to change it, be more of a people person, be friendlier, be willing to listen, and listen and learn at the same time. So that's the advice I would have given myself.
I love that. And I usually don't add 2 cents here, but I gotta add because that was me. Like, I feel like I was always friendly, but I definitely walked around like I was. I feel like hopefully people didn't really get this, but I feel like I probably walked around like it was better than some people just because I had entrepreneurial mindset before it was cool.
Yeah.
Uh, and like I was going to go do this big thing. Everyone else is going to be like, oh, you're just going to go get a job and be, work for the man. I'm going to be the man, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, empathy would have helped me a lot more
Yeah,
too.
I was guilty of it. I mean, I was that guy. I'm sure there are people that I was rude to, people I said things to that I would love to take back now. But again, it is what it is. All I can do is, go forward and go forward, from all the, experiences that I've learned. I'm not a
Yeah,
perfect person. I don't think anybody is, but I think if we understand that we can help each other, we just have to be willing to be a little empathetic. I think everyone can go a long way. And I think our community could be much better than what it is today.
100%. What book or books have greatly influenced your life?
Oh, Relentless, Tim Grove, Michael Jordan's coach. Really good book right there. Another book I would How to Win and Influence Friends, Dale Carnegie, a
Great one.
really good book there. Um, and then obviously the one that very cliche, everyone's going to mention is Rich Dad Poor Dad. I hate to say it, but it really kind of changed my mind on understanding how to follow your dream, essentially understanding, how to make that passive income, understanding multiple streams of income, and how that could get you to where you need to go. I didn't know that. I always thought, just having a secure job was going to be great. And don't get me wrong, it's great. And there are some people that's okay with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you like a challenge, if you like to better yourself, one of the hardest thing is, what is your second income, right? And I think that's the hardest part, going from having one income to what can I do to create that secondary income. And again,
Yeah.
it could be opening a bakery store, it could be arts and crafts, it could be just doing artwork. I think once people understand that and start diving into that realm of creating that second flow of income, I think it opens the mind to letting them know there's still a lot more that can be done. And so that book really changed my mindset that money is out there. You just got to know how to open the doors to allow it to
Yeah,
come
yeah.
into.
It's just a book that, I mean, some people think it's a real estate book, but it's really not. It talks about it, but it's just a book of how money works,
Exactly.
how money
And
works through your
that's why
personal
I
finances.
love it. I don't even mean to say it in a bad way. Like, everyone mentions it. It's that damn good of a book, in my
Yeah.
personal opinion. And so those are probably the top three: Relentless, How to Make and Influence Friends, Dale Carnegie, and then Rich Dad Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki.
In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Ooh, being more aware of my health. I think at one point, I kind of just let that go. I was in this mindset that I'm always going to be healthy. I had at one
Live
point a very
forever.
fast, yeah, I had at one point a very fast metabolism, which finally came to a stop. And then I started seeing, the changes for the negative, in my personal opinion. And I feel that, besides mental health, physical health plays a vital role in your life. And I think these are things that we need to pay attention to. I mean, someone said it to me in a very blunt way. You can have all the money in the world, but if you're not healthy enough to enjoy it, what's the point of even having that money?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what opened my eye up. And so in the last 5 years, just taking my health back in control has been something that I'm very, very proud of.
Yeah, I think it's a Chinese proverb that something to the effect of man will sacrifice all their health to make money and then spend all their money to regain their health. And it's this yin and yang. It's like
Mm.
it's
Oh,
pretty
wow. That's a powerful statement, Chris.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'm happy you shared that with me. That is a very eye-opening statement.
Uh, how can people reach out to you?
Oh, guys, social media, you can call customer support. If you really need to speak to me, call customer support, say, I'd like to speak to Burton. I'll do my best to get back to you, but social media would probably be the best way. Customer support, or again, I'm at many events, so just
Yeah,
follow PropStream. You'll see the events we're attending, and I'll most likely
including
be there.
EXPCon coming up.
Exactly. So make sure you guys stop by and say hi and shake hands, and let's share some ideas and see how we can help each other get to that next stage in our life.
Love it, love it. Well, thank you so much, Burton. Look
Of
forward to
course,
seeing
Chris.
you soon in Vegas, at least if not sooner. But
Oh,
thanks
and
again.
your event. Let's not forget it. I'm more excited for that one. So when that event comes through, guys, please be there. We got a little special something for everybody.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for tuning in. If you got any value out of this at all, please like, comment, subscribe, follow. I'd love to hear from you. And for more real estate related content, market observations, upcoming events, you can go to investedx.com and subscribe to our weekly newsletter. I promise you won't regret it. Thanks again.